Welcome back to the stage of history. What do you do to relieve stress? Well, most of you would say different things, but on the topic of today's video, fighting games. Yeah, those games where you beat people up until they are knocked out. Fighting in real life will most likely get you in trouble unless you're doing karate, jiu-jitsu, or in the case of SoulCalibur, using your weapons effectively while at the same time not shedding blood. I played Super Smash Bros. In my childhood for my fighting fix, and of course I will be playing Ultimate a lot when it comes out. But later on though, I played what seemed to be a lot of fighting games, such as Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, King of Fighters, Blaze Blue, Persona 4 Arena, etc. But today's video is about SoulCalibur, particularly the 6th or 7th game in the franchise, unless you count Broken Destinies or Legends on the Nintendo Wii. My experience with SoulCalibur started with SoulCalibur 4 on the Xbox 360, and then SoulCalibur 5, which I thought was only worth a rent unless you have friends to play with or you're big into playing online. I also went back to play SoulCalibur 2 because it has Link and Zelda is my favorite franchise. Of course, I like SoulCalibur the game. It's not just something I would play just for one character. I mean, I like the game itself. With that being said, this is my review of SoulCalibur 6, and I will be looking at the PS4 version. Normally I would talk about story in my reviews first, but in this case, I am going to talk about the gameplay first. While some games in this genre are on a 2D plane, SoulCalibur has an arena that you move around in 8 directions. Instead of using punches and kicks, characters use a variety of weapons, but it still follows the simple principles of fighting games. Each player has their own health meter in which you try to beat your opponent up enough to where their health depletes, causing a KO. You would go at this for several rounds a match. How many rounds, that is up to you and your friend or whoever it is you're playing against. The way this game controls is you move around the arena with the left analog stick. X is block, square is a horizontal attack, triangle is a vertical attack, and the circle button is a kick. With the push of R1, your weapon would glow red, and if you land an attack, you and your opponent would go into what is called reversal edge. Here, you and your opponent would play a game of paper, rock, scissors with the following buttons. You can also use the left analog stick to dodge certain attacks. I often use this in an attempt to counter a combo. At the top here is your soul gauge. It can fill up to a maximum of 2 meters, and with it you could perform either a critical edge attack or a soul charge. Critical edge is a very powerful special move, and soul charge gives your character a boost, allowing you to give your opponent more damage. What I just told you were the key mechanics, but there are advanced techniques allowing for more robust gameplay. Online, from what I have played, is pretty good. I used Wi-Fi, in which, yeah, I know Ethernet is more reliable, but I can't recall a time I came across some lag. There are 2 main modes for online, ranked and casual. Ranked is for competition, I would say. Surprisingly, I won the first ranked match I did with this game, and man was it close. Casual mode allows you to play custom matches, and if the competition intimidates you, there is a beginner mode. And trust me, people are good when you play online in a fighting game. I'll need to play more online to see who my main would be, but right now I tend to gravitate towards Mitsurugi, Xianghua, Taki, Zasalamel, and Grow. Oh, and there is an arcade mode where you play several different opponents in a row in matches. By the way, when I do play fighting games, I play to have a good time and relieve stress, not necessarily for the competition, even though there is a competitive community for that. Now on to the single player content. By the way, I spoil games rotten. Soul Edge, the cursed sword of legends, is brought to light in the 16th century. Cervantes de Leon became the wielder of this sword, was a man to be feared until a warrior named Sofitia was halfway to disarming Cervantes until she received fatal wounds. Then Taki showed up to aid Sofitia, defeating Cervantes in battle. The victory was short-lived as Soul Edge still lived on, falling into the hands of Siegfried, who became Nightmare. What followed was the evil seed, which let's say is a sickness that turns people into zombies. Kind of. There are two story modes in this game, Soul Chronicle and Libra of Soul. Let's talk about Soul Chronicle first. There is a main scenario and the entire cast has their own story modes too, but for this review, I am going to talk about the main scenario with bits and pieces of other characters' stories. The story opens up with Keelik in a temple called Ling Shing Sun, which houses the three sacred treasures, with one of the treasures not being there. All of a sudden, the evil seed spreads to the temple, burning it down and also leaving Keelik to fight the Malfested, which are people who were infected with the evil seed. Keelik did not become Malfested because of the mirror, which makes him immune to the evil seed. Keelik then trains with his weapon for some time under Edge Master. After training under Edge Master, he then embarks on another journey to defeat Soul Edge. Others seek after the sword because of its so-called greatest weapon of all time status and power, but remember, it is a cursed sword and the evil seed exists because of Siegfried wielding it. Along his journey, he meets a pirate captain named Maxi, although he does not look like a pirate. Keelik and Maxi meet up with Xianghua sometime later, in which Xianghua fascinates Keelik because she reminds him of his friend Xianglin, who gave him the mirror. Keelik's staff, by the way, is also one of the sacred treasures. Keelik and Xianghua finally find the wielder of Soul Edge, who is Siegfried, aka Nightmare. Keelik defeats Nightmare, but wait, that's not it. Nightmare then becomes Inferno, and Xianghua fights him only to find that the sword she uses is the sacred treasure SoulCalibur, the holy sword to counteract Soul Edge. Keelik then jumps in as a Malfested because his mirror broke. Able to maintain himself while being a Malfested, him and Xianghua both defeat the cursed sword Soul Edge. Then Keelik and Xianghua live happily ever after. Just kidding, the game doesn't really specify what happens to them after. Okay, so the main scenario is about an hour to an hour and a half long, maybe 3. And well, if the story mode just consisted of this, I would have criticized this game for having the same problems with single player content as SoulCalibur 5, but thankfully that is not the case. The story is strengthened by all these other character stories. The main scenario may be somewhat short, but with all these other characters on top of it, you could spend another 10 hours here. Personally though, I would have preferred it if the story was done in a way that Mortal Kombat 9 or Mortal Kombat X did it, where you play as all the characters in a linear fashion, or Blaze Blue, where there's an introductory story, a selection where you could play all the characters and pretty much whatever order you choose, with some unlocking the characters here and there, and a last story. Some characters do have interesting stories, such as Zasalamel, in which he has been around quite a long time in different forms throughout history. Siegfried, after he is freed from Soul Edge and wants to make up for all the wrongs he has done. Mitsurugi, who trains because he wants to be the very best like no one ever was. And then there's this game's guest character, Geralt from Witcher 3. Geralt's story is mostly him being transported into the world of SoulCalibur only to try finding his way back. And man, this fight with Mitsurugi was a hard one. I'd be here all day if I talked about the story of every character, so let's move on to the other story mode, Libra of Soul. Libra of Souls is another story mode. You create a character here, more on that in just a bit, and go off on a journey to find astral fissures. Astral fissures are portals to astral chaos, which is a place that houses memories of Soul Edge's battles. The place is like a gravitational pull for souls, but getting too close to one of these portals will make one a malfested. Potentially. You, the player, however, were greatly affected by the evil seed, but you managed to escape being a malfested. However, as Zoslamel says here, you are linked to the astral chaos and will die. You, the player, will go to these astral fissures, obtain their power, extend your life, and prevent astral chaos from devouring your soul. You have choices here that affects the story, giving this mode a bit of replay value, but I did the evil path on my playthrough and felt like a good guy for some reason. Libra of Soul turned SoulCalibur 6 into an RPG. You can buy weapons, level up, buy items for stat boosts for fights, make choices to influence the story, etc. It will probably take you about 10 hours to play through the main story in this mode, but you can also partake in side quests, which adds another dozen hours of playtime. There is a tutorial here, even though I personally think that should be its own mode. The tutorial goes over key elements in this game, although there are more under tips for each character in the menus in text mode. I do kind of wish the tips for each character were taught in a hands-on sort of way, but anyway. About the character creator, I definitely enjoy creating characters in this game. Here are some of my creations. This game looks fantastic. I really like the character designs. The art in the story mode is great too. I do have a couple minor nitpicks, such as some low-res textures, and that facial expression in this cutscene looks kind of awkward. And Talum's eyes also look a little too big here. I would like cutscenes, I mean, there are a couple. I wish there were more, but I get what they were shooting for here. The story is told in a visual novel style, trying to replicate a storybook, which would be more fitting for a game with a 16th century setting. For voice acting, I really like some of their casting choices, such as Xander Mobus for Gro, Ray Chase for Mitsurugi, Wendy Lee for Xianghua. I like the voice acting okay, although I do think the word evil is overused, and I am not really a fan of Aswell's voice.
Though their low intelligence concerns me, they still deserve love. I shall accept the love they have to give.
And the music. Oh man, the music is incredible in this game. I could listen to the character select theme all day long. I could listen to the character creator's theme, the training theme, and the museum theme. I mean, this game's soundtrack is fantastic. There is DLC coming out, although I'm one of those people who's very skeptical of DLC. $30 is kind of pricey for 3 or 4 characters and a couple of armor packs for custom characters. I did miss unlocking characters as a reward for my investment in this game. I mean, the only character you unlock is Inferno. I can't really complain about that too much though, because there are hours and hours of single player content here, as well as online for even more hours of gameplay. I do think that this game is complete, which It is a good thing, as I can't really be too angry about stuff being taken out to be sold back to later for more money. There are not as many characters in this game as SoulCalibur 4 and 5, but over 20 is a good number, I find. They brought back most of the original characters here, unlike the substitutes from SoulCalibur 5. I will admit that there are some characters that I miss, but I like what I see here. SoulCalibur 6, in my opinion, is one of the best entries in the franchise. Even if you don't have online, you could still spend hours and hours on this game by yourself, whether it would be Soul Chronicle or Libra of Soul, the two story modes. The game's mechanics are robust enough for a competitive scene, as well as being straightforward enough to be able to pick up and play. What I liked was the game looks great, the music, hours and hours of single player content, the fighting mechanics, the character creator. What I thought could have been better was to have some balance tweaks and less grinding towards the end in Libra of Souls. Unlocking characters would have been nice. A little more of a hands-on tutorial with character-specific styles. I do also wish there were at least a few more characters, not counting the DLC. I give this game a 9 out of 10. Despite some things I thought could have been better, they didn't drag the game down very much at all. SoulCalibur 6 is a solid entry that keeps on giving in terms of single player content. Some of the new mechanics add another level of strategy to this game. It's also great for those of you who would like to play a fighting game by yourself, and for when you have friends or opponents to play with as well. With that being said, thank you all for watching and have a blessed new year.